Hey, what's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in this video. Today we're gonna paint this portrait together and I'm gonna narrate it real time after a long time that I haven't done that. Now, I wanna put one strong emphasis on one thing here, and that is the light and shadow family. I'll be dividing this into two clear shapes of light and shadow, which is a little different than how I usually approach my first washes, and I want to create a clearer message for the viewer, and you're going to see how I do it in just a moment. One last note, link to a high quality scan of this in the description box below. You'll see exactly how I drew it if you want to recreate the drawing stage as well, because I skipped it, okay? So without further ado, let's get started. So it's been a while since I narrated one of these processes truly real time as I'm painting them, and it does have quite a lot of added value in my opinion, which is why I thought I'd do this one this way as well. So let me tell you about my approach here and my basic plan. So usually what I'll do is just paint and kind of skip everything that's lighter, skip the highlights, but here I want to take a more deliberate approach. What I want to do is first separate the lights and dark. So we're going to divide this into two, but for example, in the past, or in most of my processes, what I usually will do is skip this little thing here and call it a highlight. The thing is, usually the things that are in the shadow tend to be darker than the things in the light, even when it doesn't appear exactly this way. And by darkening this entire side, we're going to create some clarity. And even though I see some highlights on the eye here, we may come back and add them later on, but for now I want to get rid of everything here on the right side, okay? Now, because, and again, this is a part of separating the light family from the dark family. And the thing is, the lightest thing in the shadow family should still be darker than the darker things in the light family. So even though this part looks a little lighter than some areas here, it still should be darker if you want to provide a more let's say feeling of cohesiveness, and you want to make sure it all ties in together. Now, one thing we have to remember is we are using watercolor, and by the way, I'm going to use just a mix of black and whatever leftovers I have here, so it's going to be a kind of gray muted portrait, not necessarily black, but really muted. Now, again, we have to remember, this is watercolor, so what I want to do is find the opportunities to merge the background with the portrait, with the face itself. Keep the flow going. We want to pay attention to our edges. We want to really note all these things. Now, one more thing when you're doing this kind of a approach of separating the light from the dark is you have to go quite dark on the shadows, okay? You can't go, you can't really go, you have to make a distinction. You have to call this side the shadow family, okay? Now, this may backfire on me, I already can tell you, because you can't really lighten things too much in watercolor, but let's try it out. Let's try this approach. So anything that I deem part of the shadow family is going to get the dark treatment, and we're going to make a very clear separation between the two families, okay? Now, notice how wet I keep this edge. Reason being, it's going to let me have some more time to play around with this more blended edge, smoother edge. I'm gonna have some time to smoothen it out. So one thing I always tell beginners, advanced, it doesn't matter, is work very wet. The wetter you work, the more time you have to move the paint around, to inject wet in wet and make these corrections that are sometimes necessary, to lift back paint when it's too dark, and all of these good things that you can't do if you use too dark paint. You don't have enough flow, okay? Now, this is actually going to simplify our approach, separating the lights from the darks, because all I'm going to do is just find that line, that transition, and everything in the shadow is going to get darker, okay? Now, this isn't necessarily the way to paint or the best way to paint. It's something new I learned that I want to try out, okay? So feel free to give this one a try, a little different than usual. Could be perceived as bolder, but this is actually a more traditional approach in a way. So give it a try, see if it works for you, and if not, that's fine. Now, I'm gonna sometimes shut up during this process because I'm pretty rusty at painting and narrating at the same time, so my apologies about that. You see, now I have to again take a break and start addressing the edges. So I'm wetting the brush, it's pretty wet, but not too wet so that I get too much movement, and then I start softening these edges, This edge here really needs to be softened, and that's the beauty of watercolor, and you want to take advantage of that. You want to soften the edges whenever possible, okay? And keep going before this edge dries. This entire thing but the lip is a part of the shadow family, and to be honest with you, let's see, where should we draw the line? We can design it, you see, we don't have to follow exactly what we see. Let's try something else. Let's go for this kind of a thing and see if it works. Now, if it doesn't work, this should have a shadow on it. Doesn't matter. Let's go like this. Get the beard in the shadow family, a little thicker. This can all connect and go around. You know what, let's darken this whole thing. Like so, and now we can continue this side. And remember, this is the light family, so I'm not gonna go too dark here. I'm gonna work my way around the ear. Like so. Now we're not done, even after I finish this section, because we actually need to address the other shadows as the initial wash in a way. So let me first take care of some edges, because I do see some edges that are worth playing around with, merging. Don't worry about cauliflowers, that's bound to happen when you work, when you come back with some, you know, wetter brush, wetter paint, that's fine. And perhaps let's do a bit of this blending action here, just along this edge. Remember, with watercolor you have that added advantage, so you can do that. Now we're almost done. We do have to address some shadows here in the light side. So I'm actually going to connect one of them, which is this, with the so-called outline, okay? By the way, there's a lot of construction, so if you're hearing noises, my apologies. I'm going to connect it with this edge here, see? Like so. So that takes care of that. I will use this opportunity to already kind of blend it into a lighter value here. Now notice just how much we got done in this very initial wash. You can really tell it's a person, you know what you're looking at, you have a clear separation between the light and shadow family. Now let's address some of these shadows in here, and then we're gonna let it dry for a while. So we've got this eyebrow here, pretty dark. Gonna cover this one up. And by the way, I haven't mentioned, but there's gonna be a link in the description box as always to a high quality, this time scan, of my drawing stage. If you wanna draw the exact same way I have as a basis for this painting, you can. So let's do this. We have a bit of a shadow here. And I actually didn't go as dark, but that's fine. We'll keep this to a very minimum value range, okay? I'm gonna add based on top of this some darker values, and then we're gonna call it a day. So here we go, get the eye, get this beautiful shadow around the eyelid, bit of a shadow down here, and I think we got it. Now we're getting into some details. So let's leave it off here, let it dry, come back and start addressing the shapes within the shapes, okay? Because we have some details, some shadows within shadows, and all sorts of different values in between. Just, I can't stop myself sometimes. But here, I'm gonna stop after this one, we're gonna let it dry. So now everything is dry and we need to think about a strategy. Here's the thing, initially I said that you have to push these to be dark enough. Now I don't feel like I pushed these to be dark enough. I honestly think all of this first wash could have been darker, but we'll play with what we've got. So what does this mean? We're gonna keep this one fairly high key. Okay, I'm gonna relate things to this wash that's fairly light as well. It's not super duper light, but it is pretty light. So I'm gonna get started, and here's where I don't want a lot of details in the shadows. So in the shadow, I'm gonna keep things a little bit more confused and mixed together, and we're gonna get some finer details on the light side, okay? This is my strategy. Now let's get started. I can actually start with just a random spot like this eyebrow. Now, this means I'm darkening things as I see fit, but I'm also trying to avoid overworking any areas that are at risk of having even too many details, okay? So this part definitely gets darker around here. I'm gonna take care of my edges, get this to be a little smoother. Okay, now remember there are a lot of individual strands of hair here, but we are not gonna paint every one of them. In fact, I find that when I do, it just ends up not looking as good as I hoped for it to look. Using my time while this is still wet to add some wet in wet to darken things up a little bit more. I'm gonna connect this with a shadow here, like this. Which I'm also going to connect to these details under the eyelid and all of that. These are fairly dark, so I can actually go a little darker with no fear. So like this, but remember, we're still keeping this fairly high key. So I obviously have to darken the eyelid, but not as dark as you'd necessarily think it should be, okay? So let's get these... barely left any room for the highlight here, my bad. Keep this, I think this is as dark as this is gonna get. And already you can see how the shape of the face, the look in the eye is becoming much clearer and I think really good looking. We pop those details in the highlights. Now, sorry about a lot of noise again. There's quite a lot of construction work outside. Next up, let's stay within the lights range and start darkening maybe some of this area here to the left. That's his hair, and this area is gonna blend together with the background. So you could kind of claim it's a part of the shadow family, but I do think it's in the light. So let me go ahead and do this kind of a thing, just to darken this side and blend all of this back together. This is insane, this is drilling, it's really annoying. I hope it doesn't come through too much into the video. Now let me get a piece of paper, just this kind of a tissue, and I just dabbed a bit of this section here just to blend it a little more. Sometimes when things don't blend as much, you can actually dab them and make them blend, so to speak. So here we go, like this. Now this is a little stronger than I intended, so let's smoothen that out. I'm actually gonna lift some of this back up. I hope it won't create a mess. I don't know exactly what I tried doing here, but sometimes that happens. You make a silly mistake, then you fix it. Okay, now, a part that I do want to darken for certain is here for the beard. Should be a little darker, so let's push this edge like so, all the way down here. Here we can stop because we get to the cigarette. And if you want to just add a feeling of, you know, stubble or a bearded look, you can just add a few of these here and there. You don't need much to get that impression going. Let's think. We have a stronger shadow here on the ear, inside the ear. Same goes for this, and let's merge it with this part right around here. This actually connects with the background. And we're pretty much done with this area. Now there are a few small details like this crease right here. I'm actually going to switch to a smaller brush. Let's go like this, because I really need this to be a finer line, finer detail. And if this process is a little slower, that's obviously because I'm narrating it real time again. One of the advantages of doing the narration after the fact is that I can just, you know, focus a little better, but a lot is missed in terms of the thought process and things like that. So I didn't want to do this. Now let's make this a little lighter and we're good to go. I do see a very light and gentle shadow around here, so let's get that in, still keeping it very light, like this, and blending those edges. So that's one edge, and that's the other, and it looks a little strong, but it's gonna dry lighter than the rest. Now I don't want to overdo this section, so let's move on to the right section. I'm gonna get some shadows on the eyebrow and all of this area. Whatever needs to be darkened further, I will darken, but I will keep things fairly simple, and again, maybe quite possibly merged together, just for simplicity's sake, okay? So we're gonna get this connects to the nose for sure, and we get this strong, you would call this core shadow, this part here that's a little stronger than on the right because no light is reflected on it. And this connects to the eye, and the beauty is this is now darker than this. Usually I'd skip this as a highlight, and then it can lead to some confusion in the shadow family, so you want to make sure you make this separation sometimes. And I'm going to switch to a bigger brush, and you see I'm just connecting everything that I feel like can be a part of this, okay, within the shadow family. So this goes here, we have the details under the eye, and here I have to, on the one hand, work a little faster to make these connections, but on the other hand, you don't want to work too fast and mess things up. So I'm trying to find my balance. This goes here, probably connects with this. This will be blended like so. And here's where we have to really make sure we're fast enough. Is to connect this. Actually, let's connect it like that with the background. Go like that. Darken just a bit around here. Now at this stage, to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what this is gonna look like, so I'm just working my way around it, okay? And that's something to have in mind. I don't know exactly where these edges are gonna end, but it is a good opportunity to connect this with the hair here that I do see within the shadow, like this, and to get some of the edges blended like that, just to avoid it being too strong. Get this edge, even dab it, again with some paper, and we have to really keep going here, down below, before this dries on us. It is a little darker here under the nose, so let's get that. We have this beautiful connection here, and then it connects to the shape we just put earlier, like so. Now this area is quite dark, so I'm not scared to push it a little stronger, even though I said I'd keep this fairly high key, because it's gonna work in the context of everything, okay? Now before I move on and connect it to the mustache, I'm gonna have to do this. Get rid of this strong edge, and possibly darken this whole thing up like so. And blend this a bit. And we're good to go. We'll continue connecting this to the mustache down below. And let me do this here. I'm gonna have to wet this area before it dries on us. So a bit of a messy process. Because this is a fairly big wash, so I want to make sure I address everything. So this is that. This lower lip is really dark, and it goes like this, connects here. And we have this strong shadow underneath. It goes around, connects to this section. Let's get this whole thing down. Here, I'm gonna darken it just a bit because I want to obstruct my failings, basically, the areas where the paint became a little cauliflowered, and connect this shadow here. It's a continuation of the beard. Here, I want to get a blended edge, so let's do this. The problem is my water sprayer isn't next to me, so I'm gonna have to wing the technique here a bit. So let's do this, connect these shadows a bit, and hopefully it'll kind of blend out. This area was a bit of a mistake, so like this. Let me try and remedy that as much as I can. Ended up getting way too dark here, and that took away from this section, which made the impression look not the way I planned it to. Let me get my water sprayer and spray some water on it, just to keep things a little moving a little. yeah, that's just part of it. You see, that's how it goes. I'm gonna, to compete with this, I'm gonna just darken this section just a little bit in the eyelid and its area. I don't want this to I don't want to fully darken the whole right section, so I'm just gonna, you see, everything I add now is gonna merge right back into the right side with way too much darkness. So I'm trying to figure out what to do here. I don't want this to be too strong. So I think we're gonna leave it this way for a while and see what happens. Definitely not what I had planned. Unfortunately, that happens. Let's do this, the jacket, okay? Maybe it'll balance things out on the left. Now I'm gonna keep the jacket very simple, like so. Gonna add a bit of a darker shadow under the cigarette, and once I get to its base, I'm going to add the darker filter area, I guess. So here we go, like this. One more thing that sticks out a bit is this. This is part of the shadow family, so let's get rid of that. Let's blend this right in here. Okay, let's give it some time, see how it develops. I really need to take a few minutes away from this in order to see what we ended up with and how we can continue working on it. Okay, so it's dry now, and luckily this area kind of merged together as I was hoping it will, but I am seeing a lot of things I'm not as pleased with. So let's just go over it, see what are some of the things I want to correct or touch upon. One thing I think is, I don't feel like there's enough hair here, so I will add that. In the shadow, I don't want to touch it too much because, again, the whole point was to keep this kind of blended together, and then when I went too dark, it really ruined the impression. I want to fix the shape of the nose a lot, really mess this shape up. Add some details here and there. Lower lip should probably be a part of the shadow family. I'm going to darken it. Or maybe leave it light just to have this stronger contrast. I think it's actually an interesting part of the painting. And this is it, where this area also needs some organization. This is a part of trying out something new, working this approach I'm really not used to. So we're gonna try and make the best out of it while keeping things fairly light still. So let's do this. I'm gonna straighten out this shadow just to get a better feeling of the beard, where it runs and so on. And I'm gonna add this crease or wrinkle in the neck. And honestly, I think this thing should be in the shadow again. So we got that hopefully sorted out. Let's blend this edge a bit. Okay, now for the nose. I'm just gonna tackle these issues one by one. On the one hand, I want to go over this with some paint. On the other, I actually need to lift some back from here. So let's see if we manage to do that. You see, slowly but surely scrubbing it off the paper. And it just gave it this roundedness, okay? Like so. I'm gonna do this once again. Come back with some wet brush, dry it, scrub some of this off, maybe use the paper to scrub off again, and this is it. I think we're good in that regard. A lot of the shapes here don't sit well with me, but again, let's work on some things I'm certain of. I don't want to make big changes unless I'm really certain of what I'm doing, because some of it is just things I won't be able to really correct right now, so no point in getting to those. But let's go over this section here, add some hair. That's something I felt like was missing. I just don't feel like he has hair on the left side, and he does, so let's get that going. And obviously the likeness is not going to be there really for this one. Just because it was real challenge the previous one. So here we go, like this. At least now we can see some hair. The shape of the head, there's actually a lot off here. I'm gonna force myself to just ignore most of it for now because it's not really productive. So I'm just going to add some of the smaller details I see. I definitely see this here. Very gentle crease, wrinkle. I'm going to keep this one light, even though it should probably and could probably be a little darker. I'll just add a few details here to indicate all the wrinkles on the lip. Let's see. I do want to make this part stronger. Let me show you just a bit, just a touch here. And that's purely compositional. I just want more attention going to this area. Like that. Let's see what else. Honestly, we could start adding details here on the border between the light and shadow, but that's really not what I want to do with this one, so let's avoid that. I'm going to add some texture to the beard here. Let's see if I can do this without overworking anything too much. So here we go, and obviously you can see some highlights within it as well. I'm not going to get these in because I don't plan on lightening up anything here really. Let's make a nice separation between the lip and the mustache, and we'll do that by darkening the lip. So this goes around like this, like that, and this is nice. Maybe a bit of darks on the mustache just to give it some texture as well. This here, it's burnt, this part of the cigarette. Honestly, I think I'd much rather leave it this way, because once I start adding shadows here, it's not going to be what I initially planned of making this weak, very mild contrast here. I'm just thinking about what else I can straighten out here. Let's do this. Right around this section, just round it up, make it clearer. There is a nostril here, so I could do this and then kind of lighten it up. But yeah, I'm really thinking whether I want to add something or not. Let's leave it like that. I know I'll regret it if I start adding in darks here. It's gonna ruin the whole purpose of this, so I'm gonna leave it as is. I'm just gonna fix the shape of the eye here. Should be a little more horizontal. What else? Maybe a very gentle strengthening of the bottom section of this shadow, like that. Same actually here. I do want to add this, like so. Here we go. And this is it. I think we're gonna wrap it up now. So let me just remove the tape here, show you the end result. Yeah, this was an interesting process. I had to struggle quite a bit and still have not gotten it the way I wanted. Mainly because I'm not used to working this way, so putting my own interpretation of the light and shadow, that's definitely something I need to improve in. But I think one major thing here that works well is the fact that I decided not to go the usual route and leave all of these highlights here. I think the clarity between the light and shadow family is really showing and coming through, and that's an improvement for me. It could be, you know, that this, let's just go for it. Let's just go for this, because this bugs me the entire process. So here we go. The lip is officially a part of the shadow family, but let's do this like so. Bit of a gradation from light to dark. But in case, yeah, I think this transition is really the thing that makes this a little more unique, because usually I don't do that, just for the sake of clarity, and now I can continue practicing and improving my technique and actually get some things closer. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's wrap it up. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, despite the little detour we had to take, correct mistakes, fix things up, and just worry a bit. But ultimately, again, just push the painting all the way till the end and you'll get some kind of a result. If you don't like it, you can always do another attempt and improve it. Don't worry about it. That's just part of life. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you want to help me out, be sure to subscribe if you still aren't. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this video. And if you have any questions for me, leave a like. That really helps me push the video to more people. And if you want to learn how to paint like this, to let go, enjoy the process, get the results you want, be sure to check out my frustration-free watercolor course. Link is always in the description box below. And I will see you again in the next vid.